This is the trail that Rachel Morin took on August 5th of 2023 when somebody took her life as she was about a mile in there. And as we've been talking about the arrest of the suspect on late Friday night, 23-year-old Victor Martinez Hernandez, who came across the border illegally, according to investigators, has been charged. He was found in Tulsa, Oklahoma, as we've been reporting. And now the battle has been on of who gets him first, because he is accused of a murder in El Salvador in early of last year. He is accused of a home invasion and attacking a 9-year-old little girl and her mother in Los Angeles at the beginning of last year. Then there's this big gap of time where we don't know where he was or what he was doing until August of last year, where he's now accused in the brutal rape and murder of Rachel Morin here along this hiking trail. We have just learned from local authorities, Nicole, that he has waived his extradition. He was arrested in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Everybody's been wondering who he's going to go to first, and we've just learned that he's waived that extradition. That means that within the next 10, possibly more days, he could be coming here and he will be facing charges in the state.
25-year-old Ecuadorian migrant Christian Inga told investigators after his arrest. Inga says he came across two 13-year-old teens having sex in Casino Park last Thursday afternoon. He says he decided to join in. According to prosecutors, Inga told NYPD investigators that he tied both the boy and girl together with shoelaces, holding them at knife point, put a gag in their mouths, then took the knife and cut the girl's shorts and underwear off to begin raping her, all while filming the violent sexual attack on his cell phone. Once he finished his attack, Inga told the two teens to not move for 20 minutes while he ran away to, his words, buy more drugs. Inga was charged with predatory sexual assault, the highest sexual assault count someone can be charged with, along with rape in the first degree, kidnapping in the second degree, and a host of other charges.
At the end of the day, he is remanded into custody.
The violent sexual attack on a child rocked the Fresh Meadows, Queens community for days. The manhunt to find Inga, who police identified through sketches and surveillance photos, finally came to an end early Tuesday morning thanks to a group of civilians who spotted Inga outside a deli in Corona. They punched and beat him and held him until cops arrived.
Let's welcome in now host of the Rubin Report, Dave Rubin. Dave, you know, I've traditionally have shied away from lynch mobs and things like that, but there's an exception for, I'm kidding, of course, but this is awful. The worst case scenario. We now have two in like a week of these cases. And in a normal world, you would expect the governor of New York or some of these other officials to be outraged instead of talking about climate change.
Yeah, John, I mean, I actually, you know, every week I come on with you and I try to do as much joking and lightheartedness with the news as possible. But the two in the week are probably just a drop in the bucket as to what really is going on throughout the country, because we know that plenty of crimes go unreported. Sexual crimes often largely go unreported because there's a shame involved and a whole bunch more. But yes, the Democrat-run states and cities that have become sanctuary states and then sanctuary cities, and of course the Democrat-run administration, which has allowed for quite literally 7 to 10 million people to come into this country in 3+ years. These people need to be held account to this. You know, we're just out of 3 years of nobody being held to account for all of the awful things that they did to us during COVID, being locked in houses and injected with things and the rest of it, and people losing their jobs and not going to their grandmother's funeral. And we got no sort of mea culpa around that. But I think we're just beginning to see, this is the tip of the iceberg of the violence that is to come. We have no idea who is in this country. We have no idea what they believe or what their intentions are. And that simply can't hold for that long. You know, John, if you just let anyone into your house at any time to do whatever they want, it wouldn't be your house much longer. And that's basically where we're at in this country right now.
Right. And again, like in a normal, sane world, you'd hear a lot more Democratic politicians totally reversing course on this, outraged about what's going on. But they can't, because that would undermine their entire election strategy for 2024. Now, the New York City police said residents recognized Inga from wanted posters and then executed a citizen's arrest. Take a listen to this.
No tip went uninvestigated. Every call to 911, 311, and Crime Stoppers was critical. And just after 1 in the morning, after several days of engaging the public for their help, a call came in that a suspect was seen in the confines of the 110 precinct. Officers responded to the location, removed the individual from the station house, And after further investigation, we are confident that this person who committed this terrible crime is now in custody.
All right, so the NYPD talking about that, but the crux of this, Dave, is when you hear that citizens make the arrest here, it does give me some hope for New York, that someday that the real New Yorkers will emerge and take back control of their city.
Sure. Well, we should note that anytime that guys like us talk about New York or talk about the craziness of California, I'm actually not talking about a huge percentage of the people there who are good, decent people. I'm not the people that you're watching maul the, I believe, police officer right there.
Right.
But most people are good. Most people want law and order. It's the institutions, it's the Democrat politicians that have failed them. And you know, to your earlier point about how politicians are worried about climate change, and they're always worried about the wrong thing instead of what's going on in their cities. Let's not forget, John, you probably saw that there is a mayoral debate happening in San Francisco over the last couple of days, and they were literally debating how many drag queens each one of the candidates had on staff. I mean, that is the type of lunacy that is coming out of the party in a place like San Francisco, where the urban blight is off the charts and the drug use and the homeless and the rest of it.
Right. When in Los Angeles, where they celebrate the removal of U-turn signs because somehow U-turn signs have become homophobic. Like, these are the issues that are making the news in Los Angeles. But I want to talk about another story out of LA, because this one is concerning as well. You got a 19-year-old kid, a USC student, who's been arrested now after the fatal stabbing of a homeless man. This is the kid, Ivan Gallegos. He witnessed the man breaking into his car near his Delta Tau Delta fraternity house. Gallegos told police officers that he saw the guy with a gun, but there was no gun recovered. Still, there had been break-ins in that area frequently. The mom of Gallegos, or I'm sorry, the mom of the homeless man who was killed, said he had just been released from a mental hospital and also had a criminal record. Now, Gallegos had no criminal record. He had earned a scholarship to attend USC. From what I read in the Los Angeles Times, apparently both of his parents had been in gangs before, but they had broken the cycle, and he was now on the right track. And now his fate rests in the hands of George Gascon. And you can't defend yourself anymore in Los Angeles, Dave, apparently.
Yeah, look, I only have the same details that you have on this thing. I would say the saving grace here might be that George Gascon lets criminals off. So in this case, if he was just trying to defend his property and he actually thought there was a gun there and everything else, that I would hope that although George Gascon usually lets off the wrong people, that he will let off the right person in this case, again, with the information that we have at the moment. But this is just another example of where if you say to people, you are allowed to break into cars and steal things, to the point that in many big cities now, people leave their car windows open so that at least the window won't be broken. They just leave the window open and they leave nothing in the car so that the criminal is like, oh, there's just nothing here. The more you do that, you will incentivize more and more crime. And then good people will end up doing bad things because you will put them in positions that they shouldn't be in the first place.
Yeah, I think this Ivan Gallegos is like the new Kyle Rittenhouse, and more people need to focus on this story. We'll talk more about it. Well, like we keep telling you, there's new video like this almost every single day. This time it's President Biden struggling to get into an SUV. The president's been traveling a lot between the White House, Camp David, and campaign events as he preps for the debate. It's clearly wearing on him. White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre might call this the cheap fake du jour, although it's not fake, it's real. And it's spectacular. It's very real, in fact. But let's dig into the origin of this term cheap fake. It goes back to 2020. It was coined by Britt Paris and Joan Donovan, co-authors of this paper here, Deep Fakes and Cheap Fakes, the manipulation of audio and visual evidence. Paris and Donovan describe cheap fakes as using conventional editing methods like speeding up or slowing down video, cutting it, restaging it, or recontextualizing the footage. So I got a couple ideas. Maybe think back to when the White House showed us that video of the Border Patrol agents supposedly whipping Haitian migrants when they weren't really whipping them at all, or like when the January 6th committee selectively edited footage of Donald Trump omitting the words peacefully and patriotically from his speech, or how they never, ever include the full context of Trump condemning white supremacy from Trump Tower. The same people who ignore those cheap fakes are the so-called fact checkers that White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre was referencing earlier this week. You know, the people who are telling you what you keep seeing with your own eyes isn't real. So exactly who is Joan Donovan in particular? Now, here's her picture. This is not a meme. This is a real picture. Donovan was one of the experts who the media used to try to convince us that Hunter Biden's laptop was fake. Donovan also wrote a book about memes and called them a danger to democracy. Yeah, she left Harvard last year after they couldn't find a faculty member to keep their misinformation project alive. Donovan claims she was fired. Harvard says she wasn't, just not qualified enough to run their program. Not qualified enough for Harvard, but definitely qualified enough for the White House. Dave, the last thing I did when I was researching this story was look up a picture of Joan Donovan. And I thought about some of the other misinformation experts out there, like Misinformation Mary Poppins, Nina Jankowicz. These ladies are definitely giving up some sort of vibe here. I don't know how you describe it, but I'll let you try that.
Well, I would say this is all very Orwellian in nature. The people who keep accusing the rest of us of misinformation actually are the misinformation specialists. It would be virtually impossible on my daily show for me to lie as much as CNN or Corinne Jean-Pierre or the Washington Post or the New York Times lie about everything, whether it's the Covington kids are racist or very fine people on both sides or some of the other things that you just mentioned, or Jussie Smollett was lynched, et cetera. But, you know, the very fine people, which you mentioned, Trump talking at Trump Tower, where he did condemn white supremacy, that, whatever you want to call it, misinformation, that was the very genesis of why Joe Biden said he was running for president. Yeah. Remember, he was Barack Obama's vice president. He did not run after Obama's 2 terms. He sat it out. Then he claimed in his campaign launch video that because of Charlottesville, and you shall not replace us, he decided to run for president because Donald Trump said very fine people on both sides. Literally, the next sentence was, I'm not talking about the white supremacists or the neo-Nazis. They should be condemned completely. So the biggest, quote unquote, cheap fake of all time comes from these people. So their irony is dead. Long live post-irony, I suppose.
There's one problem with that theory, though, and that's you have to believe that Joe Biden actually used that as the impetus. I know he's told us that, but you would have to believe that. I personally don't. I believe that a lot of folks looked at Joe Biden as the most pliable guy out there, the guy they could manipulate the most and do whatever the progressive left wants. I think that was a bigger part of it. But let's play a clip here, because I have a clip of Donovan.
I'm with you on that. That's just the way it was sold to us. But I am with you on the idea that he was basically the sack that they needed to not come off as complete progressive lunatics. But of course, what we got was complete progressive lunacy.
Yeah, let's take a look here at Donovan after she claimed she was fired by Harvard.
Yeah, we can go chase the bad actors online till the end of time. But the fact of the matter is the platforms themselves are designing products that are hurting our democracy. They're hurting teenagers. They're amplifying genocide. And Facebook knows.
So she's kind of right about that. And I read her paper. There are some interesting points, and she talks about how these social media companies manipulate it. But she totally glosses over the fact that they manipulate things and have historically from a very ideological point of view.
Right, of course. I mean, almost all of the manipulation is always manipulated towards what the goals of the left are. There are very few examples of social media being manipulated to the benefit of, say, conservatives or Republicans. I mean, social media, look at Twitter during the Hunter Biden laptop story. They literally not only shut down the New York Post's Twitter account, but they made it so that you couldn't even privately share the link to the story on the New York Post's own website. So everything goes in the direction of the very same people she's trying to keep in power. She might find that a little ironic, but what did I just say about irony?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And you didn't even get my Seinfeld reference earlier, that these videos of Joe Biden are real and they are spectacular.
No, I got the reference. I was trying, you know, it's daytime television. I was trying not to make a untoward joke around that.
It's a noontime double entendre. I think we can get away with it, Dave. If we don't, I'll let you know. Good to see you, my friend. Take care.
Good to see you.